Thanks for tuning in, guys. So, if you follow my Instagram, you were probably expecting me to make a video about my breakup and how psychedelics are going to help me with that. But I don't know. Things have changed recently. I did a little bit of shadow work last night, and I thought I'd been doing shadow work for a while, but then a friend kind of gave me some meditations to sit on and try, and yeah, it was a proper shadow work session. But I don't know, I just don't feel like I really need to talk about the breakup right now at all. I don't have any desire to. So instead, I'm going to talk about the time a couple of years ago, a fair decent few years ago, when my friend tried weed for the first time and I had to call an ambulance for her. So, on to the actual story. Now, this was a few years ago, as I said. And it was actually with one of my friends who I'd gone to high school with. And at this point, I think I wanted to get in with her. And we'd been friends for a while, but things were starting to change a little bit. I told her I'd smoked some weed, and she said she wanted to try it. And I was like, yes, dope. Like, this is how we'll be able to... this is how I'll be able to make my move, basically. And then I was like, okay, yeah, cool, come over and smoke some weed together, and I'll help you get high for your first time. Now, at this point, I hadn't smoked weed many times at all. And I actually thought, for some reason, that, you know, weed kicked in straight away. And you basically had to keep smoking until you felt high. I didn't realize that it took like 15 minutes or something like that until you felt, you know, the effects. So I invited her over, set up a little Gatorade bong, and yeah, we take turns smoking. And at first she's like, yeah, I'm not really feeling anything, Jack. I'm like, that's cool, you just gotta smoke some more. Anyway, she hits probably about six to eight cones, and yeah, we just sit down next to each other watching TV. Feeling pretty good, and I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm liking the vibe here right now. And she's just kind of sitting next to me, and then she goes really quiet for a long time. And I'm kind of like baked as well, so I'm pretty quiet. But, you know, I'm just, these are the early days of weed smoking, so I'm not feeling it too intensely. And next thing I hear her just say, she's like, oh my gosh, she's like, I'm back again. I was like, what? She's like, I think I just died. I was like, what? And then she started starting to freak out, and she was like, I don't want to die again. I keep dying, she said. And I realized like she just come back. Well, I didn't realize at the time, but like now I realized she'd just come back from like some really deep headspace, some deep like head trip. And so she started freaking out, saying she was about to go back there. And next thing she just goes quiet again and lays on the couch. So I'm just kind of like, you know, are you okay? No response. And I notice her lips are actually going blue. So at this point, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? It was pretty cold, so like maybe I thought she was too cold, or maybe she said she was cold or something, because when she came back to again, I put her in my bed, wrapped her up in some covers and stuff like that. I wasn't being creepy or anything. Like at this point, I was actually genuinely concerned for her. And then like I hoped that she would start warming up, but I noticed her lips were getting even bluer. Now, I'm assuming this is because she wasn't breathing properly. I'm thinking she was freaking out so much that she just was like hyperventilating. She's like, I think you need to call an ambulance. I'm like, fuck. I knew her parents pretty well because I was close friends with her in high school, and so I was like, shit. And I was like, do you really need an ambulance? And she was kind of going back and forth. She was like, I don't even know if she was going back and forth. I think she'd just be like quiet for a while, and then she'd be like, I need an ambulance, and then she'd go like quiet again. So basically, when it got to the point where the only thing she was saying was, I need an ambulance, I was like, okay, I gotta call an ambulance. So call the ambulance, and you know, they arrive with the sirens on and everything. They burst in through the door, and I'm like collecting her shit so that we can like go to hospital, and like helping her at the door. And next thing, the ambos are just kind of they're like, what is she taking? And I'm like, weed. And they're like, yeah, what else? And I was like, that's it, just weed. And then their whole like demeanor kind of changed, and like, and they turn to her as they're like, this is your first time smoking weed? She's like, yep. He's like, okay. Well, right now what's happening is you're just freaking out from the effects of the weed. He was like, so we can take you to the hospital, but there's nothing we can do for you. So otherwise you can just stay here and you can just let the effects die off. And she was like, I think I'd rather go to hospital. And we're like, oh, okay. So we all hop in the ambulance, and, you know, at the time, like, I can laugh at it now. At the time, I was like, fuck, like, I was feeling like a dickhead, because I'm the one who made us smoke so much weed. Like, obviously, I'm feeling responsible, so I'm feeling terrible. We're on our way to the ambulance, and she says, you know, to the ambulance, she's like, oh, I think I'm feeling better now. Like, comes to while we're on our way to the hospital. And that'd be right. But yeah, look, we got to the hospital, and, you know, she came out, she was fine, we talked about it, and her mum came and just grilled us both. And I think I just lied. I just said that my friend had brought over weed, and, like, I was innocent, I'd never smoked it before, but we both just got high for the first time. The mum seemed to buy it, so it was all good. But yeah, look, the reason I'm bringing this story up, because obviously it's an old story, and so I forget tons of details, so it is kind of like, why am I bringing it up? Well, the reason is because I made a video pretty recently where I was talking about one of my trips on weed, and I was describing some of the things I was seeing, and basically doing like a proper trip report from this weed meditation. And people were just calling out bullshit. Like, I was getting a lot of people saying, like, this is bullshit. Like, you cannot see machine elves or entities on weed. Like, you need DMT for that. And I can totally understand where they're coming from. Like, that would have been my point of view a year back, without a doubt. You know, I remember the early days I was smoking weed. Like, I didn't, what my friend went through, I really didn't take her situation that seriously at the time at all. I thought she was just freaking out from the same effects that I was feeling. So in my head, I'm thinking like, man, you are overreacting totally. But she would have been in a real deep headspace. Like, she would have been tripping out. When she said, like, I'm pretty sure I've just died, like, that's not a subtle experience at all, you know? And, you know, I had other friends, or at least one other friend, who would smoke weed with me, and every time he smoked weed, he would just trip out. And I won't lie to you guys, like, I'd judge him. Like, I'd be like, man, like, just calm down. Just like, it's just weed. Like, you need to try LSD, really see what it's all about. But I think that these guys were just, especially my male friend, because now he's explained to me the experiences that he went through, so I do understand them better now, or I can at least, like, understand that he was just more, I don't know what it is, maybe it's more open. I don't know if I really don't know what it is, but in my case, like, when I started the early days of smoking weed, I did not have, I didn't have anything close to these sort of experiences. And I definitely didn't have anything close to the sort of experiences I'm having these days. And I would have thought it was impossible to have on weed. But I remember as I started meditating on psychedelics, the experiences, the intensity was elevating greatly and rapidly with each trip. And eventually, I knew when I was smoking weed, it would give me like minor flashbacks, but nothing more than flashbacks to my more intense trips. But then I stopped smoking for a while, and stopped smoking, stopped taking psychedelics, just had a little break for a while. And when I started smoking weed again, it was a whole new experience. I mean, taking psychedelics again was a whole new experience as well. But the weed was just taking me to a whole new place. It wasn't just giving me flashbacks, it was actually carrying on from where I had last left off on whatever psychedelic trip I'd had, which was a characteristic I'd only experienced on more of your intense psychedelics like acid and shrooms and DMT. Basically, whenever I go somewhere on one of these places, like if I go to a place on LSD, and it's a very deep place, then the next time I do a drug like DMT, it just takes me straight back to that place, and then we carry on from there and we keep exploring. And weed would basically just help me remember what I had experienced. Now it does the same thing. It takes me back and keeps going further. Obviously, it's not like I'm not afraid to do weed like I am DMT. Like, I have a reverence for DMT, which I don't have for weed. I still respect weed a lot more now. I think the intent behind our use of psychedelics really affects the experience. And it's not just simply like intent as in, okay, sitting down and meditating, because there are a lot of people who use weed and meditate at the same time and don't have intense psychedelic experiences. But I find usually if this is you and you are wanting to have a psychedelic experience in weed, you probably will want to reduce the amount of weed you're smoking, and that's part of the intent behind it. You know, you don't go on, like, if DMT, for instance, we understand when we use DMT, it's so that we can have a seriously intense experience which could shake us at our core. And so we only use it when we're like, we are ready to be shown something that can put us on a different path. You're not going to be smoking DMT every night. DMT is something that you're going to be doing like a maximum basically once a month. I mean, there are people who do it like once a week, and probably are people who do it every day, but you know what I mean? It's like when you reduce the amount of times you're using it, it puts into your head that this is something that's important. And part of that is also when you prepare for it mentally and all these things. So that is something that I started doing with weed, and I'll probably talk about this in the video that I want to make about how to basically meditate on weed, or how to use weed to maximize psychedelic effects. But yeah, that is my video. It's just a quick one today because I did say I was going to be releasing a video and I wanted to make something, and yeah, it's a funny story for me anyway. I know she loves her MD these days, so I'm sure this chick probably got back into smoking weed after a while. I reckon that trip would have freaked her out for a bit. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you all soon. Have a great day. Peace.